Housekeeper surprises millionaire by answering call in French. The next day, she receives an unexpected invitation. For years, she hid who she really was to survive. But one slip revealed a truth that no one expected. Now, her past is knocking at her door, and it could destroy everything she rebuilt. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. Let's continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll hear in your life. Rain beat against the windows of the luxurious apartment, while Amanda observed the newspaper headlines spread across the glass table. Each word felt like a stab. Millionaire scammer flees with fortune. Betrayed fiancé revealed as criminal. Financial scandal rocks New York elite. The photographs showed her face from every angle, as if she were a wanted criminal. Just 48 hours earlier, she was Amanda Mitchell, respected heiress, fiancée to one of the most promising attorneys in the city, and adopted daughter of renowned businessman Edward Mitchell. Now, at 28, she was nothing but a social pariah accused of embezzling almost $50 million from her own family. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. Journalists, curious onlookers, former friends wanting details of the scandal. Amanda turned off the device and sank into the beige velvet sofa that Edward had personally chosen to decorate the apartment he'd given her as an engagement present. Everything there carried his mark. Refined good taste, attention to detail, the paternal affection that had welcomed her since she was 15. The door opened with a bang. Richard entered without ceremony, his brown hair disheveled, his suit wrinkled. His eyes, once affectionate, now stared at her with a coldness she had never seen before. "I need the keys to the apartment," he said, extending his hand. "And to the car, too." Amanda felt her chest tighten. "Richard, you know I didn't do this. You've known me for 5 years. You know I would never be capable of—" "No, you." He gave a bitter laugh. "Apparently I didn't know anything. The documents are all in your name, Amanda. The transfers, the signatures, everything. Edward showed me the evidence." The name of her adoptive father made Amanda rise from the sofa. "Edward? Where is he? I need to talk to him. Explain that." "He doesn't want to see you. He's in the hospital with high blood pressure. The doctors said the shock almost caused a heart attack." Richard took the keys from his pocket and threw them on the coffee table. "He asked me to take care of everything. You have until tomorrow to leave." The words echoed in the silent apartment. Amanda felt her legs weaken. Edward, the man who had found her alone and frightened in an orphanage in Rochester, who had raised her as a daughter, who had given her education, love, opportunities, now completely rejected her. "Richard, please," her voice broke. "I swear on everything sacred that I didn't touch that money. Someone is framing me. You have to believe me." He stared at her for a long moment, and for an instant Amanda saw a shadow of doubt in his eyes. But soon his expression hardened again. "The evidence is very convincing, Amanda. Forged documents like these require a lot of technical knowledge, a lot of planning. And you've always been too smart for your own good." He headed for the door but stopped halfway. "I thought I knew you. I thought we were going to build a family together. But to discover that the woman I was going to marry is capable of stealing from her own father—" The door slammed shut, leaving Amanda alone in the apartment that would soon no longer be hers. She collapsed to the floor, tears finally coming. She couldn't understand how her life had turned into a nightmare in a matter of hours. The morning before, she had woken up happy, planning the final details of the wedding that would take place in 2 months. She had a meeting scheduled with the florist, a dress fitting, a romantic dinner with Richard. Life was perfect, or at least she believed it was. The turnaround began when Edward called her into his office. The man who had always greeted her with a warm smile was serious, almost cold. On the desk, a folder full of documents. "Amanda, I need you to explain what this is," he said, pointing to the papers. She approached, curious. They were bank statements, transfers, contracts she had never seen before. But her signature was on all of them. A perfect signature, identical to hers. "Dad, I don't understand. What are these documents?" "They're proof that you diverted $49 million from company accounts over the past 8 months. Edward's voice was controlled, but Amanda noticed the tremor in his hands. "Transfers to accounts in tax havens, all authorized by you." The world seemed to spin around her. "That's impossible. I never signed any of this. Someone forged my signature." "Forged?" Edward stood up, walking to the window. "Amanda, these signatures have been authenticated by 3 different experts. They're yours. And there are also recordings of the calls you made to the bank confirming the transfers. What recordings? I never made any calls. Edward activated the computer's sound. The voice that came from the speakers was unmistakably hers, asking to confirm million-dollar transfers to foreign accounts. Amanda felt her blood freeze. "That's not me," she whispered. "Someone is framing me, Dad. You have to believe me." But when she turned to face him, she saw in Edward's eyes a deep disappointment that hurt more than any accusation. "I raised you, Amanda. I gave you everything a daughter could want. Education, affection, opportunities, and this is how you repay me. Dad, please, don't call me that." His voice cut through the air like a blade. "A daughter wouldn't steal from her own father. A daughter wouldn't destroy everything I've spent 40 years building." That afternoon, the news was already on all the websites. Someone had leaked the information to the press, turning her private life into a public spectacle. Her photographs appeared on all screens, accompanied by speculation about her whereabouts and how she had managed to deceive everyone for so long. Amanda spent the night awake, trying to understand what had happened. Who would have access to her documents? Who knew her routine well enough to orchestrate something so elaborate? And most importantly, why would someone do this to her? The next morning, after Richard left, taking her last hopes with him, Amanda made 2 calls. The first to her lawyer, who answered coldly and said he could no longer represent her due to a conflict of interest. The second to her best friend Julia, who hung up as soon as she heard her voice. Alone and with no one to turn to, Amanda looked around the apartment that had been her home for 3 years. Each object told a story. The sculpture Edward had brought from a trip to Italy, the books Richard gave her as gifts, the photographs of the family she thought she had found. All lies, all crumbling. With the few savings she had in her personal account, Amanda bought a bus ticket to the countryside. She didn't know exactly where she was going, only that she needed to disappear, to reinvent herself, to find a way to prove her innocence. As the bus left New York behind, she watched through the window the city where her new life had been born, and where her identity was now dying. Amanda Mitchell was ceasing to exist. Who would emerge from the ashes of this destruction was still a mystery, but one thing she knew: she wouldn't give up on discovering the truth, no matter how long it took. The road stretched ahead, as uncertain as her future, but for the first time in days, Amanda felt a spark of determination. Someone had meticulously planned her downfall, and if there was a culprit, there was a way to prove her innocence. She just needed to figure out how. 2 years later, on a cold June morning, Anna Smith adjusted her navy blue uniform and tied her brown hair in a simple bun. In the mirror of the small bathroom of the one-bedroom apartment she shared with 2 other women, she no longer recognized the Amanda of before. Her hair, once blonde and always impeccable, now had its natural color. Her face without makeup looked more ordinary. Even her posture had changed. Shoulders less straight, steps more restrained, gaze less direct. Anna Smith was a careful creation, a 30-year-old woman, born in a small town in Virginia who had come to New York in search of work. She had completed high school, had experience in cleaning and housekeeping, and a simple story that didn't arouse curiosity. Amanda had rehearsed every detail of this character for months, until it became almost natural. The bus dropped her off at the mansion gate at 6:30 in the morning, as on every weekday. The property in the Upper East Side was imposing. 3 floors, well-maintained gardens, an Olympic-sized swimming pool, and modern architecture that contrasted with the more traditional houses in the area. Amanda knew every corner of that house after 2 years working there, but she was still impressed by the life she had led before and now observed as an outsider. Gabriel Matthews was a demanding but fair businessman. At 42, he ran one of the largest construction companies in the country, had lived alone since his turbulent divorce 3 years earlier, and rarely showed any emotion beyond professional coldness. Amanda had learned his routine. He woke up at 5, exercised in the house's private gym, had breakfast while reading international economic newspapers, and was in the office by 8 sharp. In those 2 years, she had made efforts to go unnoticed. She arrived before everyone else, cleaned the house in silence, prepared coffee the way he liked it, and left without making noise. Gabriel barely noticed her presence, which was exactly what Amanda wanted. But on that morning, something different happened. While vacuuming the library, she heard Gabriel speaking on the phone in French. It was a tense conversation about a project in Lyon, and Amanda immediately realized he was making an interpretation error. that could cost the business millions. The French client was requesting specific modifications to the building's foundation due to the type of soil, but Gabriel understood they were aesthetic requests. Amanda paused for a moment, divided. Interfering would mean revealing that she understood French fluently, which didn't match Anna Smith's profile. But seeing such a costly error happening due to a misunderstanding deeply bothered her. Gabriel hung up the phone, visibly frustrated, and Amanda made an impulsive decision. "Sorry, Mr. Matthews," she said, maintaining the Virginian accent she had perfected. "I didn't mean to listen, but don't you think they might be talking about a problem with the ground, not decoration?" He looked at her, surprised. It was probably the first time Anna Smith had spoken to him beyond the usual good morning and, "Excuse me." "What do you mean?" Amanda pretended to hesitate, as if she wasn't sure. "It's just, my ex-boyfriend worked in construction, you know? And he always said that when the ground is too soft, you have to make a different foundation. From what I understood of what you were saying, they're worried about that." Gabriel frowned. "You understand French, Anna?" "Not much," Amanda replied quickly. "Just a few words I learned from watching movies. I might be wrong." But Gabriel was already rereading the emails from the French construction company with different eyes. 15 minutes later, he returned to the library where Amanda continued cleaning, pretending nothing had happened. "Anna," he said, and there was a different note in his voice. "You were right. It was really about the foundation. Thank you." Amanda just smiled timidly and continued her work, but she noticed that something had changed. Gabriel started to pay more attention to her. In the following weeks, small episodes repeated themselves. Amanda would find important documents left aside and discreetly place them on Gabriel's desk. When he received foreign clients, she would serve coffee and catch fragments of conversations that sometimes contained valuable information, which she later mentioned subtly and seemingly innocently. "Mr. Matthews," she said one morning while cleaning his office, "that German gentleman who came yesterday, I think he was interested in the shopping mall project, but worried about the timeline. He said something about schedule that I didn't quite understand." Gabriel stopped typing and looked at her. "What exactly did he say?" Amanda pretended to think with difficulty. "Oh, I don't know. It was about... what's that word? Ah, yes, Zeitplan. I think that's schedule in German, right? My neighbor is German and sometimes says that." It was a lie, of course. Amanda spoke German fluently, as well as French, English, and Spanish, but Gabriel didn't need to know that. The businessman made some calls and discovered that the client was indeed concerned about delivery deadlines. A meeting was scheduled to resolve the issue before the contract was cancelled. "Anna," said Gabriel that afternoon when she was putting away the cleaning products, "you've been observing things well around here." Amanda shrugged. "Oh, no, Mr. Matthews. I just sometimes hear things unintentionally." "How far did you study?" "I finished high school, sir. Took the GED." Gabriel nodded slowly. Amanda could tell he was reassessing his impressions of her, but she strived to maintain the facade of simplicity. The turning point came 3 months later, when Gabriel received a complex financial report in English about an international investment. Amanda saw him flipping through the papers with a confused expression during breakfast. She approached to collect the empty cup, and looking discreetly at the documents, realized it was a feasibility analysis for a development in Miami. The report was technical, full of specific terms of the American real estate market, but she immediately understood that there were inconsistencies in the return on investment calculations. "Mr. Matthews," she said hesitantly, "can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Are you thinking about doing business in Miami?" Gabriel raised his eyes, surprised. "Why do you ask?" Amanda pointed timidly to the papers. "Oh, it's just that I saw these English words and my daughter, who works at an American company, taught me some things about business, you know? Just curiosity." It was another elaborate lie. Amanda didn't have a daughter, but she had created a detailed story about a fictional daughter who worked at a multinational to justify any knowledge that might escape. Gabriel studied her face for a moment. "What would your daughter do if she were analyzing this?" Amanda pretended to think with difficulty, as if trying to remember advice she had heard. "Oh, she always says to look at the numbers carefully, right? That sometimes they put things that seem good but aren't. Like, she used a word... what was it? Oh, yes. Misleading. I think it means deceptive. Gabriel was silent for a few seconds. Did your daughter say anything else about investment analysis? She said you have to see if the numbers really add up, if they're not adding things together that shouldn't be added together. Amanda paused, as if making an effort to remember, and that when they promise very high profits very quickly, it could be a trap. This observation made Gabriel reread the report more carefully. In the following hours, he discovered exactly the inconsistencies that Amanda had identified: unrealistic projections, hidden costs that were masked, and a return structure that benefited only the American intermediaries. That afternoon, Gabriel called her to his office. "Anna, I need to talk to you." Amanda felt her heart race. Had she exposed herself too much? Was he suspicious? "I'd like to offer you a promotion," he said. "How about working as my personal assistant? The salary would be much better, and you would help me with some basic administrative tasks." Amanda pretended to be surprised and grateful. "Seriously, Mr. Matthews, but I don't know if I have enough education for that." "You're smarter than you think, Anna, and honesty and common sense are sometimes more valuable than diplomas." Thus, Anna Smith went from housekeeper to Gabriel Matthews' personal assistant. It was a risk, Amanda knew. The closer she got to him, the greater the chance of her disguise being discovered. But it was also an opportunity to rebuild a life that made sense, even if based on a false identity. In the following months, Amanda established herself in her new role. She organized Gabriel's schedule, attended some meetings, taking basic notes, answered phones, and gradually became indispensable to him. Always careful not to demonstrate knowledge beyond what Anna Smith could have, but useful enough to justify her presence. And for the first time in 2 years, Amanda allowed herself a small moment of happiness. Perhaps she could build a new life there, beside a man who respected her for what he saw in her, not for what she represented. Perhaps Anna Smith could find the peace that Amanda Mitchell had never known. 8 months after becoming Gabriel's personal assistant, Amanda had found a delicate balance between being useful and remaining invisible. The routine had become comfortable. She arrived early, organized his schedule, participated in important meetings, always in the background, and gradually realized that Gabriel trusted her judgment more and more. It was a September morning when everything began to change more deeply. Gabriel had cancelled all meetings after receiving a call about the loss of an important contract. Amanda found him in the library, looking out the window with an expression she rarely saw: vulnerability. "Mr. Matthews," she said softly, "can I bring you some coffee?" He turned, and she noticed the weariness in his eyes. "Anna, have you ever stopped to think that sometimes we make choices that seem right at the moment, but later discover they were completely wrong?" The question hit her like a punch. Amanda knew exactly what he was talking about, though for completely different reasons. "I think everyone makes mistakes sometimes," she replied carefully. "The important thing is to learn, right?" Gabriel gave a bitter smile. "And when the mistake cost millions of dollars and the trust of important people?" Amanda moved a little closer, momentarily forgetting to maintain professional distance. "You're a good man, Mr. Matthews. I've worked here for almost 3 years, and I see how you treat people, how you make decisions thinking about what's right. If you made a mistake, you were trying to do your best." He stared at her with an intensity that made her blush. "How can you be so sure about me, Anna?" "Because I pay attention," she said, realizing she had exposed herself more than she should. "Good people have a different way of existing in the world." Gabriel was silent for a long moment, and Amanda felt that something had changed between them. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. "Would you like to have dinner with me tonight? Not as employer and employee, but as friends?" Amanda's heart raced. It was dangerous. The closer she got to him, the greater the risk of her true identity being discovered. But there was something in Gabriel's eyes that prevented her from refusing. "If you'd like," she answered. The dinner took place in the mansion itself. Amanda had prepared a simple meal, grilled salmon with vegetables, something that Anna Smith would know how to make, but that wouldn't draw attention to more sophisticated culinary skills that Amanda possessed. They ate on the veranda, under the soft lights of the garden. "Tell me about your life before coming to work here," said Gabriel, serving wine. Amanda had rehearsed this story hundreds of times. "There's not much to tell, sir. I was born in Diamond Springs. My mother worked in a store. My father left us when I was little. I came to New York to try for a better life." "And your daughter? You always talk about her." Amanda felt her stomach tighten. The fictional daughter was part of her cover story, but talking about her became increasingly difficult. She lives in California now. We don't talk much. Gabriel noticed the sadness in her voice. Did you argue? It's complicated, Amanda murmured. Sometimes life takes people in different directions. He extended his hand and touched hers gently. I'm sorry. The touch was like an electric spark. Amanda quickly withdrew her hand, startled by her own reaction. Anna, said Gabriel softly, I hope you know you can trust me. If you need anything, any help, thank you, Mr. Matthews. That means a lot to me. In the following weeks, the relationship between them gradually deepened. Gabriel began to include her in business dinners, introducing her as his trusted assistant. Amanda stood out at these events for her ability to listen, observe, and make insightful comments without ever seeming presumptuous. During one of these occasions, she met Henry Castle, one of the partners of the law firm that provided services to Gabriel's company. Henry was a meticulous man with a penetrating gaze, who seemed to analyze each person as if they were a legal case. Amanda immediately realized that he was observing her more carefully than the other guests. Your assistant is quite interesting, Henry commented to Gabriel when they thought she wasn't listening. Where did she work before? Anna has experience in several areas, Gabriel replied vaguely. She's a person of trust. Amanda pretended to be focused on her papers, but she noticed Henry's investigative look on her. There was something about his posture that made her uncomfortable, as if he could see through her disguise. The situation became even more complicated when Gabriel began to demonstrate feelings that went beyond professional admiration. Small gestures, a hand on her shoulder, a prolonged look, invitations to dinners that were clearly not just business. Amanda found herself divided between the desire to correspond to the feelings she was developing for him and the fear that any greater intimacy could expose her true identity. It was during a weekend, when she was organizing some documents in the office, that Gabriel found her alone and finally verbalized what they both had been feeling. Anna, he said, approaching her in the library, I need to tell you something. Amanda looked up from the papers, her heart racing. I know you work for me and this might complicate things, but I've fallen in love with you. The words hung in the air between them. Amanda felt tears forming in her eyes, tears of joy mixed with despair. How could she correspond to this love while being a walking lie? Mr. Matthews, Gabriel, he corrected her softly. Just Gabriel. And before you say anything about social differences or professional hierarchy, I want you to know that doesn't matter to me. You're the most honest, intelligent, and brave woman I've ever met. If only he knew, thought Amanda. If he knew that she was a fugitive, accused of theft, living under a false identity. Gabriel, she finally said, I have things in my past that could complicate this. We all have a past, Anna. What matters is who you are today. He moved closer, and Amanda couldn't resist when he kissed her. It was a sweet kiss, full of promises and hope. For a moment, she allowed herself to dream that she could really be Anna Smith, that she could build a life based on this identity, that she could be happy. But reality hit her the following Monday, when she arrived at the office and found Henry waiting for her. Anna, right? He said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I'd like to talk to you, in private. Amanda felt her blood freeze but maintained her composure. Of course, Mr. Castle, how can I help you? Actually, I think you're the one who might need help, he said, taking a newspaper out of his briefcase. Especially after I saw this. It was a newspaper from 2 years ago, with the headline about the financial scandal, and there was her photo, next to an article about the unknown whereabouts of scammer Amanda Mitchell. Amanda tried to maintain a neutral expression, but Henry noticed the recognition in her eyes. Interesting how people can change, isn't it? Different haircut, different color, simpler posture. But the eyes never lie. He put the newspaper away. The question is, does Gabriel know who you really are? I don't know what you're talking about, said Amanda, but her voice trembled slightly. Of course you do. The question is, what do you intend to do about it? Because I have a company to protect, and Gabriel has been my client for more than 10 years. I won't allow him to be harmed by, let's say, dubious associations. Amanda perfectly understood the implicit threat. Henry had discovered her identity and now had power over her. What do you want? She asked quietly. Nothing too complicated, he replied. Just for you to disappear from Gabriel's life before this information reaches him or the newspapers. At that moment, Amanda realized that her fragile, newly found happiness was about to crumble again. She had two choices: disappear voluntarily, protecting Gabriel and preserving the illusion of Anna Smith, or fight and risk destroying everything he had built. As Henry withdrew with a satisfied smile, Amanda sat at her desk, her hands trembling. For the first time in almost 3 years, she began to feel the same despair that had dominated her when she fled New York. The difference was that now she had much more to lose. She had found love, respect, a life that made sense. And someone was about to take all of that away from her again. Amanda spent the next 3 days in silent agony. Henry had given her a week to make her decision, and time was running out. Gabriel noticed her restlessness, but she invented excuses about headaches and personal problems. How could she explain that she was being blackmailed because of a past that might not even be true? On Thursday night, as she prepared for another sleepless night, the doorbell of her small apartment rang. It was almost 10 o'clock, an unusual time for visitors. With her heart pounding, she looked through the peephole and saw an elegant woman, about 50 years old, whom she didn't recognize. "Who is it?" she asked through the door. "My name is Helen Carter. I was Edward Mitchell's secretary. I really need to talk to you, Amanda." The sound of her real name made Amanda open the door immediately. The woman entered, looking nervously around. "How did you find me?" asked Amanda, still in shock. "It was difficult, but not impossible. I need to give you something Edward asked me to keep before—" Helen hesitated. "Before he passed." Amanda felt her legs weaken. "Edward, he died 6 months ago. Heart problems that worsened after all that scandal." Helen took a sealed envelope from her purse. "He gave me this 2 years ago, said that if one day he was no longer here and you came back, or if I managed to find you, I should deliver it personally." With trembling hands, Amanda opened the envelope. Edward's familiar handwriting made her collapse in tears before she even read the words. "My dear daughter Amanda," the letter began. "If you're reading this, it's because Helen managed to fulfill my last mission. I hope you found peace somewhere, because I know you weren't guilty of what happened." Amanda stopped reading, looking at Helen in disbelief. "Continue," said Helen softly. "There's much more." The letter continued. "I always knew you were innocent, but I was too cowardly to defend you publicly. Richard Morgan was being blackmailed by someone very powerful, and they forced me to choose between destroying you or watching the entire company crumble along with hundreds of employees. I chose to protect the others, and that guilt consumed me until the end." Amanda's tears fell on the paper, blurring some words, but she continued reading. "The true person responsible for the theft is Victor Sanders, a minority partner you barely knew. He had access to your documents through Richard's office, forged your signatures perfectly, and even hired an actress to imitate your voice in calls to the bank. He planned everything meticulously because he knew you were too intelligent and might one day discover the irregularities he had been committing for years." Amanda vaguely knew Victor, a man in his 40s, always friendly, who occasionally appeared at company social meetings. She would never have suspected him. "Inside this envelope are copies of documents that prove your innocence, including recordings I managed to make secretly of conversations where Victor admitted what he did. There's also evidence that he threatened Richard with death if he didn't cooperate. I kept everything these years hoping to have the courage to use it, but I never did. Now it's your choice." The last part of the letter was the most painful. "Amanda, you were the daughter I never had biologically, but whom I loved as if you were my own. Forgive an old coward who was afraid to confront a powerful man. Forgive me for having allowed you to carry alone the weight of something you didn't do. If there is justice in this world, one day the truth will come to light and you will be able to rebuild your life with dignity. I love you forever, Dad Edward." Amanda cried for almost an hour, holding the documents that proved her innocence. Helen remained by her side in silence, understanding that the moment was sacred. "Why didn't he look for me before?" asked Amanda finally. "He tried," replied Helen. "He hired private detectives, but you had completely disappeared. After his health deteriorated, he made me promise I would continue searching. I discovered where you were 2 weeks ago. And Victor, where is he now? Still in New York, still respected, still stealing, but now you have the means to stop him." Amanda spent Friday studying the documents Edward had kept. There was enough evidence not only to clear her name, but to convict Victor Sanders of multiple crimes. Recordings where he boasted about having managed to incriminate the spoiled princess, falsified documents with his handwriting, even records of payments to the actress who had imitated her voice. But using these proofs meant becoming Amanda Mitchell again, facing courts, the media, public exposure. It also meant revealing to Gabriel that Anna Smith had never existed. On Monday, Helen accompanied her to the Specialized Financial Crimes Police Station. Detective Maria Sanchez, a serious and competent woman, examined the documents with growing attention. "These documents are explosive," she said. "If authentic, they not only prove your innocence but reveal a much larger scheme of money laundering and fraud. Victor Sanders has been under investigation for months for other irregularities, but we never had conclusive evidence." "What happens now?" asked Amanda. "Now you decide if you want to press charges. It will be a long, painful, very public process. But if this evidence holds up, he will be convicted, and you will be completely exonerated." Amanda asked for time to think. She knew there was only one person she needed to talk to before making any decision. That night, she asked to speak with Gabriel in private. They met in the mansion's library, the same place where they had shared so many important moments. "Gabriel," she began, her voice trembling, "I need to tell you who I really am." He looked at her with concern. "Anna, what's going on? You've been strange for days." "My name isn't Anna Smith," she said quickly, before losing her courage. "My name is Amanda Mitchell, and 3 years ago I was accused of stealing $50 million from my adoptive father." Gabriel remained motionless, processing the words. "I didn't do it," continued Amanda, tears beginning to fall, "but I had to run because no one believed me. I created a new identity, hid and found work in your house. You've known me for almost 3 years, Gabriel, but you've known a lie." She told him everything. Richard and Edward's betrayal, her escape, the 2 years living as someone else, the constant fear of being discovered, and finally Edward's letter and the proof of her innocence. Gabriel listened in silence, his face unreadable. When she finished, he remained quiet for a long time. "You lied to me about everything," he said finally. "About my identity, yes, but never about my feelings, never about who I really am inside. How can I know what's truth and what's a lie?" The question cut Amanda like a blade. "You know my character, Gabriel. You've seen how I work, how I treat people, how I make decisions. That wasn't pretending." Gabriel stood up and walked to the window. "I need time to process this, Amanda. Or Anna. I don't even know what to call you anymore." "Call me Amanda," she said softly. "It's who I've always been." He turned to face her. "And Henry? He knew, didn't he? That's why you were acting strange." Amanda confirmed with a nod. "He gave me a week to disappear from your life, or he would reveal everything." "Henry," Gabriel murmured, and there was anger in his voice. Of course. In the following days, Amanda prepared to face the legal process. With the help of Detective Sanchez and a competent criminal attorney recommended by Helen, she organized all the evidence against Victor Sanders. Gabriel sought her out on the eve of the first hearing. "Amanda," he said, and the name sounded strange on his lips after 3 years of calling her Anna. "I've thought a lot about everything you told me." She prepared her heart for the rejection that would surely come. "You lied about your identity," he continued, "but in 3 years you never lied to me about who you are as a person. The woman I fell in love with, your honesty, your intelligence, your compassion, all of that was real." Amanda felt a spark of hope. "Gabriel, it's not going to be easy," he said. "It's going to be difficult to rebuild trust, to understand where Anna ends and Amanda begins. But I want to try, if you want to." The legal process lasted 8 months. It was exactly what the detective had predicted. Long, painful, and very public. Victor Sanders hired the best lawyers, tried to discredit the evidence, even suggested that Amanda had forged Edward's letter. But the truth was stronger than the lies. Other crimes of Victor's were discovered during the investigation. Former employees came forward with complaints. The actress who had imitated Amanda's voice was located and confessed her participation through a plea deal. In the end, Victor was sentenced to 25 years in prison for multiple financial crimes. Amanda was officially exonerated of all charges. Richard, who had testified in her favor, publicly asked for forgiveness, revealing the threats he had suffered. But the most important victory had happened before the trial. Gabriel remained by her side throughout the process, facing the curious looks and malicious comments of New York society. Gradually, they rebuilt their relationship on more solid foundations: truth, mutual forgiveness, and genuine love. 2 years after the trial, Amanda and Gabriel married in an intimate ceremony in the garden of the mansion where she had worked as a housekeeper. Helen was her maid of honor, the only bridge that remained with her past. Amanda decided not to return to the life of a millionaire heiress. Instead, she used part of the compensation she received to create a foundation supporting women victims of psychological violence and emotional blackmail. The Edward Mitchell Foundation became one of the most respected organizations of its kind in the country. On a sunny spring afternoon, 3 years after the wedding, Amanda was at the cemetery where Edward had been buried. Beside the tomb, she held in her arms Sophie, her 6-month-old daughter, while Gabriel arranged the fresh flowers they had brought. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered, touching the marble headstone, "for teaching me that truth always finds a way, and that true love withstands any storm." Gabriel approached and put his arm around her. "He would be proud of the woman you've become." "Of the woman you've always been," Amanda smiled, looking at the daughter who slept peacefully in her arms. Sophie would never know a fugitive mother or a false identity. She would only know Amanda, a woman who had learned that sometimes you need to completely lose yourself to truly find yourself. As they walked back to the car, Amanda thought of all the women her foundation had already helped, of all the stories of new beginnings she had witnessed. She had discovered that her greatest strength wasn't in hiding who she was, but in transforming her pain into purpose. The truth had taken years to come to light, but when it finally emerged, it brought with it something more valuable than simple justice. It brought the freedom to be authentic, to love without masks, and to build a future based not on fear of the past, but on hope for a better tomorrow. And so Amanda Mitchell, who once was Anna Smith, who once was a lost and frightened woman, found her way back home. A home that wasn't a place, but a feeling. The feeling of finally, after so long, being able to be exactly who she had always been inside. The end. Dear listeners, we hope that Amanda and Gabriel's story has touched your hearts as much as it touched ours while we were creating it. This journey of rebuilding truth and true love reminds us that even in the darkest moments, there is always hope to start over. To continue experiencing emotions like this, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories that explore the complexity of human feelings. You can find it by clicking here. If this narrative awakened something in you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your like. Each of your gestures motivates us to continue bringing stories that celebrate the strength of the human spirit. Every day we have new narratives that show how love and truth can triumph over any adversity. Don't miss our upcoming content and tell us in the comments which part of Amanda's story moved you the most. We're eager to read your reflections.